Hello and welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast, brought to you every week by our sponsors oxygenaddict.com, fueledbycake.com and raceforce.co.uk. I'm also joined by the lovely Helen Murray. Helen, how are you today, mate?
Good evening, Rob. I'm really, really well, thank you. I'm a happy Helen this week.
You're always a happy Helen.
This week, I'm especially happy this week.
Go on, why are you especially happy this week?
I don't really know, but I have some cake which I'm eating right next to me, so that always makes me happy. No, it's just, I don't know, I'm having a happy week.
It's so nice to talk to someone happy and jolly. You make me laugh out loud just at the joy you have in having a piece of cake, Helen. It's wonderful.
It's called Marrakesh Express Loaf.
Now, I believe I saw this on Twitter.
Were
you and Joycey getting into a bit of this on Twitter?
Yeah, Rachel Joyce recommended. No, she baked it actually, and I was like, that sounds amazing. Looked up, Googled Marrakesh Express Loaf. Just Google it and make it. It's incredible. It's got coffee in it.
Helen, right, I'm going to stop you there, mate. Right, 90% of our listeners are men, and when you say the phrase, "just look it up and make it," we all go, is there a shop we can buy it at?
It's not available in Tesco's yet, but maybe that could be a little money spinner, couldn't it, in the new year?
We have a line on the side of Cup of Tri cakes.
That is it, you see.
You make them, post them out to people.
Yep.
We're in the money, baby.
Love it. I did send some cake to someone the other day, but I don't know if they actually got it.
How can you receive cake and not contact the person and say thank you for it? Helen, send me cake. I'll be texting you. I'll be saying, unless they're just so rammed full of cake that they can't move.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it might have got lost. It might have got lost in the post. Some postie might have nicked it. They might be enjoying a little bit of banana loaf.
Did you have a good bonfire night? Did you get out and get a bit of bonfire cake action in during that?
Sadly, I was sat at a computer working.
Oh, breaks your heart.
Yeah, so there were no toffee apples going on.
Not good.
Not at work, just computer screens. So no, I didn't. Did you?
Oh, the little man, he's now 3 3/4, isn't he? So it's his first real sort of awareness of bonfire nights. We went down to a local thing, and it was one of those ones with like local guys in yellow jackets setting the rockets off. Some of them going straight, some of them kind of going along the horizon. And you were like, this could go either way at this point, couldn't it? But it was good though.
At least you know Xander can run though. You know, if you did have a firework coming towards him, he would be able to run.
Oh man, I tell you what, you've got to keep a tight grip on the kids. There's like two or 300 frantic parents all looking around like those meerkats going, have you seen Josh anywhere?
Oh, no.
They disappear into the dark and there's a bonfire and it's stressful times, mate.
Oh god, no.
Oh dear. Now, come on, let's have a little bit of sort of triathlon action to ward away the winter rain and the winter blues that have most definitely set in here over the last week, I tell you.
Oh, tell me about it. But actually, I did a long run today. Absolute pissing rain.
How far was it? How far did you go?
I did 2.5 hours. I did about 17 miles in that time, but a little bit off road. And suddenly,
was it all in the driving rain as well?
Yeah.
Oh,
brilliant.
Boy.
It's good. It was good. Honestly, I genuinely, apart from the last sort of 2 miles, which really was in the driving rain on a really boring road, I loved it. And I was running through this field at one point, no one else around. It didn't have any cows in it or anything like that, so no need to be scared. I was just like, this is awesome. This is brilliant. This is how to spend a Monday.
It's great, isn't it, man? If you get out for a long run in the rain, cycling in the rain is pretty unpleasant.
Yeah, I hate
it. But running in the rain's okay. I quite like it as well. I did my long run yesterday in the rain, and it was all right.
Yeah.
I thought,
it's brilliant.
It was all right.
Really good. Anyway,
had the old stride power meter on, looking at what was going on the hills.
And you slowed down on the hills. Did it
Well,
tell you that? Did it say you're not making as many strides going uphill?
It said you idiot, for a coach, call yourself a coach. You think you're slowing down, do you? Well, you're not. So no, it was good. It was interesting. It's very, very sort of eye-opening how much you've got to back off to keep the power number the same going uphill, and then very similar to coming downhill. I was like, right, I'm gonna run down this hill and try and keep the power number at what it was before. And of course, running downhill with gravity. it's blooming impossible when you're on a bike, but running, I was doing like 17.5 kilometers an hour trying to keep the same power. I was, yeah, not good. Sore thighs today.
Have you enjoyed using it and having the extra data? Because clearly, I'm not a big fan of like lots of technical things, and I genuinely just like going really,
Yeah.
or sort of trying to. I do have a heart rate monitor, but that is about it. Is it useful? Have you enjoyed it? Does it enlighten you?
It's good for data geeks to play with for sure.
Think it's going to take
Where
off?
it's most useful is on hills. I've been eye opened by the difference that's going on when I run up a hill, and even as an experienced runner, I'm sort of thinking, well, I'm putting out, I'm going a little bit harder maybe because I'm going uphill, but I've made a conscious decision to back off, and still it's like 20% more power than running on the flat, even having a conscious decision to back off. So, like my running numbers on the flat are about 300 watts, and the minute the road goes uphill, if I don't consciously back off, it jumps to 380, 400 watts. So, I'd be really interested to go and do a race with it
Mm.
that's hilly
Mm.
and use it to kind of consciously back off on the hills and see if you can get like an overall better race performance out of it,
Yeah.
because my gut says if I'm doing that, everyone's doing that, and we're probably all giving each other inaccurate feedback on, on how fast we should be going on the
Yeah.
hills.
Yeah.
So it would be an interesting thing to
I
trial.
see, because obviously I've done a little bit of trail running and off-road running and sort of coastal running, right? And
Yeah.
I think so that would have started, what, 2007, 2008, I would have started doing a bit more off-road running. When I first started, I would have done like 10K races. Any hill I got to, I would have absolutely walked it. There was no chance I could even run up it. Now I have got to the point where if it was, let's say, as an example, a sort of 10K fell race that I would have done last May with some really, really horrible hills, I would have tried pushing a little bit harder on those hills. I would have done like a run walky kind of thing going up it, knowing that I need to save a little bit of energy, but equally I need to go faster than the people
Mm.
behind me. And I just sort of think, I don't know, if I had a watch telling me, I think I'd be too trying to stick to numbers, which actually, in a race situation, probably wouldn't help because, if someone's running off ahead of you, well, you've kind of got to stick with them and say, screw the numbers, or else they're going to go.
Yeah, it's I don't know what the answer is to this one yet. We're still in the early days of this, and I think you're right. In especially on short races or very steep hilly. I mean, we both know on a trail race, if it goes uphill and it's steep, you're just basically trying to get up the damn
Yeah,
thing, aren't you?
yeah,
And I think the comparison there would be a bit like if you've got a power meter on a mountain bike. It doesn't really matter
no,
what the number says. You need to get up that bank
exactly.
somehow
You've
or
got to
other.
get up it. You can't suddenly
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah, exactly. I think where it might come in useful is for pacing longer events, especially over rolling terrain. You know that kind of like the Ironman UK run
Yeah,
course.
yep.
We've got that massive long drag uphill. I'd be dead interested to see what's happening there in terms of power numbers and stuff. And I'm not. I was going to say I'm not convinced there's a huge amount more feedback than you get from heart rate rising, but
Yeah.
you definitely see the power number jump straight away, whereas the heart rate takes maybe a minute and a half to get to the sort of stabilized level that I've been working at. So maybe it'd be useful for that. I don't know.
It's interesting. It
Um,
is another
it
dimension,
is.
isn't it?
It is. And like I said, I think the way to go with it is to try and do something like a 10K race over a rolling course
Hmm.
and consciously be like, right, I'll back off on this bit and see what happens later on in terms of pacing. Can I put a bit more out at the end?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, a lot of testing to be done yet, though. Data
Interesting.
geeks ahoy!
Interesting. Rob, should we switch to some racing results? Because,
Some real
yeah,
athletes.
real
Let's do
athletes.
that.
Well, there was.
Who should we go with first?
Oh, let's go with brilliant result this one. Ironman 70.3 Mandurah, which is over in Western Australia, and third place for Laura Siddle, GBs.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Laura used to live out in Sydney and was working as an engineer, and I think age group world champion, and went pro last year, midway through the year before.
That's right,
And
yeah.
yeah, so this is a brilliant result for her over in in Australia. Absolutely fantastic. So Caroline Steffen won it by, she had a comfortable win. She won in 4:04.49. She won from start to finish. Yvonne van Vleuten was second in 4:10.14, and Laura was third in 4:12.18.
I'll tell you what, I'm liking that company for her, though.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
That is not an unpleasant podium, is it, really?
No.
Caroline Steffen and Yvonne van Vleuten, two of the greatest Ironman athletes. Good work, Laura.
Yeah, and she ran 3 seconds faster than Van Vleuten. So put a decent run together.
What does she run?
She did a one.
I've tried to get the results up here, and the website's pants. So sort it out, Ironman.
She did a 1:24.35.
Not bad, man. That's
good, isn't it?
That's not shabby at all.
Right. So she said she's coached by Matt Dixon and Purple Patch, and she has said. So Matt Dixon has said, well done, very solid third at Mandurah, a great start to your Southern Hemisphere adventure. And Laura herself said, pretty happy to put in a solid race and end up on podium with 2 awesome athletes.
Very cool, man. I tell you what, fast bike course. Fast bike. Have you seen Caroline Steffen's bike split there?
Something, go on.
2:14.
Oh, yeah, that's fast.
In the men's race, we should mention this, really, shouldn't we? Denis Chauveau from France took it out in 3:45 with a 2:06 bike split. Jake Montgomery in second with a 2:02 flat bike split. So that is, oh man, do the maths. Is that like 45k an hour? That's insanity.
Yeah, that is.
Terenzo in third, and looking a little bit down the field there, just holding off from Caroline Steffen by a couple of minutes, is Nick Baldwin in 11th. So solid race for him there, just outside the top 10. Good to see him starting to bounce back a little bit.
I really, really hope he has a better season.
I do too. He deserves it. He's a good guy.
Definitely.
And I'm not sure if this is the actual superstar of rap himself, but in 17th place we have someone claiming to call themselves MC Hammer. Now I can only assume it's a relay team because the bike split is 1:58. And with my limited knowledge of aerodynamics, MC Hammer's pants are not going to be that quick, are they?
No.
Maybe they are. Maybe that's the way we're headed. Baggy panted tri-suits.
I can't see it personally. Can't see it.
Cover up my skinny little chicken legs anyway.
Oh, God. Rob, over in the States, it was 70.3 Austin. And again, we had another Brit on a podium. Corinne Abraham finished, I think she was third, wasn't she? In 4:29.26. And she won Ironman Melbourne, didn't she, sort of 2 years ago. And then this past year has just been plagued by injuries, didn't get to Kona, so this was her comeback race. She's now joined up with Brett Sutton, so he coaches her, because I think her thinking was, actually, I haven't got that many years left in the sport. I'm going to give it everything I've got. So
did she come to the sport fairly late on?
Yeah.
Was she in her early 30s when she even started?
Yeah, she did race across America. She was former judoka for Wales, I think. And yeah, pretty late to the sport.
Good knowledge. Did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily think someone would come from judo and fit the body type for triathlon, would you? She is like super lightweight judoka.
It could have been. Well, or she could have been a midweight judoka. I don't know, but then you see.
Is that an incredibly sexist thing I've just said? I should probably.
No,
I don't know.
I think when you look at, say, the top 10 of Kona in men's and women's, they are different shapes and sizes, and that's what's.
Yeah, that is
great,
true,
isn't it?
But she's like a skinny little racing snake, isn't she? So.
I think she's quite. I don't like. She's not tiny. She's not. She's not. I don't think she's like Mirinda Carfrey's kind of quite petite, isn't she? Quite small.
Oh, she's tiny. Yeah.
And she's not like on a par with that at all. She did a 1:22.47 run. Decent.
I've got some pictures of her up here. She's ripped, man.
That's what.
Tiny. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's tiny. Good effort.
So There we go.
Yeah.
It was Ginny Seymour from South Africa did 4:23:48 to win. Lauren Barnett of America did 4:26:43 ahead of Corin Abraham. And then in the men's, James Hadley of Great Britain came fourth in 4:01:54. It was won by Sam Appleton of Australia in 3:51, just ahead of Starkovic in 3:52, and he finished ahead of Taylor Reid. So that's a really good run out for James Hadley, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is. I don't know a lot about him actually, but he was apparently on some kind of TV reality show thing over there in the USA.
Oh.
He's based in the USA, and he was on, I don't know, something like, I don't know, someone will tell us, won't they? He was on some kind of reality show over there. He's a very good looking, sort of model-y type looking dude, as well as being pretty quick. So maybe you should interview him.
Interesting.
Oh man, moving on.
Shall we go to the Caribbean, or shall we go to
Let's go to the Caribbean first.
Caribbean?
Tie the Caribbean in, can't we, with our exciting news? The Island House Triathlon is, am I right in saying it's in Bahamas?
Yep.
Or Barbados? Bahamas, right?
Yeah. An invite only.
An invite only race with prize pot of, get this, £500,000.
I know. Who stumps up £500,000? It's pretty good, isn't it?
It is. You know, I'd love to know the story behind this. It's because presumably is it promoting the resort it's held at?
Well, so Luke Mackenzie was the race director.
Right. Interesting.
And apparently it all came about after, had he been like visiting or something like that? But he's race director and invited, I guess, 19 of his friends to go and race with. And I know certain prizes were kind of sponsored. So they had the Roker, the wetsuit or rocker. Gomez wears that. Rachel Joyce wears that. Cervelo was the bike. And then Coca-Cola, who are obviously, they're in that Team Bravo, aren't they? Which is Rachel Joyce and Tim Don. So you kind of wonder if it's all, I don't know, if that's got stuff to do with it.
Well, I know what, mate. $500,000 is a nice little payday.
For the end of the season,
so it ended up with, was it $100,000 on the wire?
60,000.
$60,000.
Yeah.
45 for second and 30 for third, was it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, 30,000 for third. So let's go through the results. Come on, let's talk. It's basically like a 3-day race, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So it's like a cumulative
3 different races on 3 days, and then on the last day, they did a non-drafting standard sprint, 750, 20k, 5k.
Yeah.
But they started it in like reverse order, so whatever time gap you had over second, the first person was off, and then the next guy chased them, and the next guy chased them.
That's it.
It's just a bit like the way they do the modern pentathlon, isn't it, in the Olympics?
Yep, totally. But when the likes of Gwen Jorgensen and Javier Gomez are the ones who got the who were in the lead with quite nice cushions, then it gives everyone else slightly less of a chance, doesn't it? But yeah, Friday it started with an individual time trial sort of event. Then they had an enduro Olympic race where they had to do 3 lots of swim, bike and run, which just would have been really, really tough, wouldn't it? And then they did the sprint to finish it off. So for the longer distance athletes like Mirinda Carfrey and Leander Cave and Heather Wurtell, it would have been bloody hard work, wouldn't it? Up against the likes of Gwen Jorgensen and Flora Duffy and Lisa Norden. So anyway, results. The final results. So Gwen Jorgensen won the women's in 3:27, just 34 seconds ahead of Lisa Norden, who finished ahead of Flora Duffy, just 1 week after Duffy took the Xterra World Championships. And then there was sort of Alicia Kay was 4th, Rachel Clammer 5th, and then you had the long distance specialists, so Heather Wurtell, Rinnie, Lauren Brandon, Rachel Joyce and Leander Cave. So Cave was 10:43 back from Gwen Jorgensen.
What a field though.
I know.
Imagine that it must be like an end of season sort of
Jolly.
get together. We'll race every day and have a really good time, but race hard. And
Recover in the sea afterwards.
Just have a holiday with an hour's hard racing every day. Hey,
Totally. It would be pretty
brilliant.
Really, really quite beautiful.
Yeah, you said it.
In the men's, Javier Gomez won in 3:08.21 to cap off a really rubbish season for him, quite frankly. Joking. Richard Murray.
Yeah, he must be gutted.
Yeah, really, really gutted.
Now he's just got another 60 grand to make up for it.
Richard Murray was second. Tim Don third. Cam Dye fourth. Leon Griffin finished ahead of Ben Hoffman, who finished ahead of the race director himself, Luke McKenzie. Then it was Trevor Whittell, Barrett Brandon, and Tim O'Donnell finished 15 and a half minutes, nearly 16 minutes behind Gomez.
Wow. I wonder whether I get on TV, because that's the kind of thing that it'd make really good watching, wouldn't it? Like a triathlon cross with superstars kind of deal.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I know there were cameras there recording it.
Oh, cool. So maybe it will get on TV, hey?
There'll be some sort of replay of it somewhere, won't there?
Good stuff.
There you go.
Right, so from the sublime to the ridiculous, from the Bahamas, and I'll tell you how I knew it was the Bahamas, Hells.
Go on.
Let's break this breaking news now, because I received an email from our guest for next week, who said to me, I'm just off to the Bahamas for a week to do some racing and have a holiday, but I'd love to come on your podcast next week.
Fantastic.
None other than second at Kona, Rachel Joyce.
Brilliant.
On the podcast next week.
Love this news. Fantastic.
Please hope the interview works now that I've announced it on air. I'm so excited.
And if it's not next week, then it'll be the week after.
Oh, we're going to make it happen. We've got it booked in. We've got a slot and everything. Dead professional.
Great news.
So it's going to be awesome. I'm totally excited to chat to her, man. It's going to be brill.
Good egg.
Super star. Right, so from the Bahamas all the way down to wet, windy Box Hill.
Yeah.
And what a wet, windy day it was, man.
It looks absolutely minging. There are loads of umbrellas up in the background and everyone looks absolutely sodden through. It was the Winter Ball Buster. So it's a duathlon, an 8-mile run, then 24 miles on the bike, which you have to go up Box Hill many, many, many times, and then an 8-mile run to finish off.
Do you know, Hells, it was my second ever multi-sport event.
Oh, was it?
2002.
Did it bust your balls?
The day before I was due to fly out to Australia,
oh my God.
I was down in London to catch my flight, and a pal said to me, well, it was a few weeks before actually, we have to enter this race, come on, we'll go and do it, the Ballbuster Duathlon. And boy oh boy was I in a whole world of pain in that race.
I think
I finished pretty close to last actually in 2002.
Had you done? Oh, well, you did it. So it was just your second ever event.
It was about 3 weeks after I'd drunkenly signed up for the half Ironman Lamberis. So it was one of those like suicide runs on the first run, sort of fall apart on a borrowed bike on the bike, absolutely stag around on the run.
Oh no! But then you did go to Australia to recover, so
yeah,
it's all right.
Yeah,
it worked out all right in the end. You're still alive.
Ugly. It was ugly. So anyone who went there and had the hideous experience of the horrendous long second run split, been there with you. It was a long day out.
God. Well, the person this year who really, really shone was the same guy that won it last year. But this year he was 6 minutes quicker. 6 minutes quicker. Andy Greenleaf. Wow. He did it in 2:31.54 as a new course record. And that's impressive.
It's mind-blowing beyond mind-blowing is what it is, Helen. Back over the previous few years, if you were racing down in the mid 240s, you were superhuman. Rich Hunt dominated this event for several years, and to get down into the 240s was seen as, just an amazing performance. And there was a couple of other guys who used to race him who I chatted with after a race when I went down and did it one year, and they were telling me that they practiced going downhill on the bike and they'd get a mate with a motorbike to tow them up the hill, and then they'd practice ripping down. There's a series of, you probably saw it on the Olympics if you watched it, a series of kind of blind left and right hand bends where you just can't see what's coming. And these guys used to practice kind of getting accelerated into the corners, and all those normal people are braking and trying to think, God, please don't end up in the fence over there. So it's one of those courses where it's not just about bike power. You've got to be an unbelievable bike handler as well. There's more than one sort of over 90-degree turn in it. And for him to go around, was it 107 his bike time? Yeah. So it's 3 minutes and 20 seconds faster than the previous bike course record, which over 25 miles is an astonishing chunk to take off, isn't it?
That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely
Really,
awesome.
really is. And his run splits as well, 42 minutes for the first one and a negative split second run, 41:35. So, the guy's a legend already. I'd love to get Andy Greenleaf on the show. If anybody knows him and can pass on his contact details to us. He went down to Ironman Wales and finished 5th this year.
That's right, because he had he got
DQ'd, didn't he?
That's right, he got DQ'd at the World Championships for, so what he thought was doing a safer manoeuvre, would have been safer crossing the line rather than not. Referee right by him, DQF straight away. So then just entered Wales on a bit of a whim, I think, in a bit of a,
It was only a week later, wasn't it? Or 2 weeks later, maybe.
Yeah, a couple of weeks later. And what an athlete. Rob, he has a PB in a marathon, which he did at London, this just last year, 2 hours 21.
Oh, man.
Just to make you feel a little bit better, his 10K time is 30 minutes and 34 seconds.
Oh man, that's just smoking fast, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really.
Oh,
amazing athlete.
Wow.
So watch out, Kona, for Andy Greenleaf coming at you in 2016.
Tell you what, mate. Wow, I'm blown away by that. But again, I can't overstress how impressive his splits are there at the Ballbuster. That's going to last for several years unless he breaks it, I think.
Well, he won by 12 minutes.
So is that right?
That is right. I mean, so Chris Nichols, who was second, he did a 46:24 first run. He did a 107 bike, so very, very similar, like 2 seconds slower, and his second run was 48:17. And then in third place, Dan Bradshaw, he did a 50-minute first run, 105:52 bike. That's good, isn't it? And then a 49:09 second run. So, Andy Greenleaf just in another league there. Should we go over the women's results as well, Rob?
Yes, we certainly shall.
Yeah, so Ali Moult of Rugby Triathlon Club, she did 3:07:59, winning by more than 10 minutes. So again, a very, very comfortable win. Ruth Purbrook from Full On Tri finished in 3:19, and then Holly McGuigan was third in 3:20. And Rob, I should mention that Vicky Siverston got in touch with us on Twitter. We're at Cup of Tri, and she said that it was a really, really, really good race, but also that it was horribly windy and rainy, but fantastic event.
Awesome stuff.
And she came second.
I've just had a thought.
I was going to say, she came.
Just had a thought, Helen.
Go on.
If only we knew a girl who ran and biked well. If only we knew somebody who could go down and have a crack at the Ballbuster Duathlon, who enjoys running up hills, who enjoys biking up hills, who enjoys being out in the beautiful nature like Box Hill is. If only we knew somebody like that, Helen.
Oh, don't know who that is.
I'm thinking we might have to push you forward for this next year, That course is made for you. You and Rich should go for a little trip down there, mate. A little end of season fun.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's organise a trip down there next year. We'll all go down and have a crack at it.
Maybe.
Come on, don't be shy. You love running up hills,
I love it. Yeah, what, November next year?
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
We could say, yeah. What I did want to say was not about me, about Vicky. She said, heavy rain, strong winds, but a great race, loved it. And she got second in the 40 to 49 female category.
Jolly good.
So, Vicky, thank you very much for getting in touch.
Yeah, appreciate it. Lovely to get in touch. And speaking of getting in touch, we have our new widget on the website. If you go to the podcast page on oxygenaddict.com/podcast, you can click a button, Helen, and you can leave a voicemail message for
Have you
us.
got any this week, Rob?
I haven't got
Oh,
any.
come on, people. Give.
And I'm telling you now, am I a genius of web programming, or am I the kind of idiot who it took hours to find and install something like that?
I might.
This stuff does not come easy to me. Go on it. Click on it for me. Leave us a message.
You can leave Rob a message and it would absolutely make his week, wouldn't it? It'd probably make your year. In fact, it might even make your decade. If you go on to oxygenaddict.com/podcast, you will see that there's a little kind of clicky thing, top right hand of the page, where you can click on it. You can leave a 90-second message. You could maybe even ask Rob a coaching question. You could give us a little race report within 90 seconds. All you need to do is have a microphone on your computer, hit record, and then press send, and it goes directly to Rob. That is pretty clever and quite geeky.
It's awesome. Helen, I'm going to press pause right now and get back to you in a second. My boy's woken up.
Fine.
We're back.
Hello.
He's back asleep, Hells.
Oh, good. This is good news.
Poor little kid. He's got a cough and he keeps waking up and he's hot, and it breaks your heart, doesn't it, when the kid's ill?
Oh, poor thing. But he's
Yeah.
He's back in bed, back asleep.
Well, let's hope so. For another 20 minutes, eh? Let's keep rolling. Sorry, listeners. Oh, so we were saying, weren't we? Send us a call. Give us some chat.
Yeah.
Ask us a question. Get on. We might even use it live on air, mightn't we?
We could, in fact, we could link it in with the programme, which would...
That'd be good.
Exactly.
We could have like viewer. It'd be like Radio 2, wouldn't it?
Not
Back
quite.
in the 1980s.
Not quite, but, you know.
Steve Wright in the afternoon.
Not nowhere near.
Yeah, it would be great. People used to like phone in, didn't they, and say, "Hello, my name's John, and I'm calling about this."
Well, it's like the love songs, isn't it, on a Sunday morning with people's recorded messages.
Yes.
Yes, so that's
triathlon love songs.
That's exactly what you're after, isn't it?
Helen and Rob's triathlon love songs. Hello, I'm calling in for my boyfriend who's out on his 6-hour ride. Can you play some Megadeth for me?
Oh goodness.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I've lost it.
Absolutely. Now, Rob, I was going to tell you what I did today for the very first time.
Go on. What did you do for the very first time today?
I had an ice bath.
No way.
Well, yes. Yes way. It didn't have any ice in it. However, it was a cold bath, right? And
now, is this intentional, or has the heating stopped working?
This was very much intentional. Someone had recommended it, and clearly I've seen it before, people recommending it. But I thought, genuinely, I have been for a long run today. Actually, maybe I'll give it a go. And so I ran the bath. And this person had tips. So they said, take a hot drink, put a hat on, and wear something warm on top. So I did all of that. So I was sitting in the bath with a woolly hat on. And I was in there for 5 minutes, and I went very, very numb, and I have weird circulation anyway, so quite frankly, I can't really feel my feet at the best of times. I got out for a minute, and then I got back in again for another 5 minutes, and then I got out and had a warm shower.
How cold was it?
It was, well, you know when you have to get into, like Llyn Padan or something ahead of Slate Man?
Yeah.
Colder than that.
Right, cold enough to take your breath away.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I did, when I initially got in there, I was shaking and I thought, oh.
Really? So imagine how cold it would be if you poured loads of ice in there as well.
Yeah, I'm not going that far yet.
Oh, come on, we've got to do it next week. I want to see it happen. I've seen pictures of Crowe getting in. We could have this on the cover shot of the photo, you sitting in the bath with your woolly hat and your ice cubes all around you.
Yeah. Maybe we'll leave that one.
Oh, cold one.
But I would recommend it. I think I will do it again. My legs feel. It essentially just numbs them, doesn't it? I know more scientifically a lot goes on, and it helps recovery.
Did you consider being in the shower with a cold shower and cold showering your legs with cold water?
No.
Because in that way you kind of get all the coldness on there, but without the agonizing, lady bits getting dunked in the water as well. I'm extrapolating for myself. I don't want my gentleman's parts in the water, you see, so I'm assuming it's similar for ladies. Possibly not quite as, not quite as chilly.
It was cold.
Cold, yeah. Well,
it was cold.
And do you feel like it's significantly more springy right now because of having done it?
Maybe this is why I'm so happy. Maybe it's not the cake. Maybe it was the ice bath. Do I feel more springy? Well, the legs definitely feel fine.
Interesting.
It'll be interesting to see how they feel tomorrow.
Very interesting. You know that guy Tony Robbins, the American sort of self-help guru dude? He's got a cryo chamber in his house.
Oh, yes.
I was listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast, and he goes in and it's like minus 200 and something first thing in the morning, which, I mean, it can't be any colder than your bath, can it? I mean, I know the numbers are colder, but how much colder than a cold bath can it be?
Well, the rugby players, lots of rugby clubs have those, and they all get in them, don't they? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we shall see.
Much for muchness. But anyway, I would recommend it.
There we go. Well, listeners, if you fancy a nice cold bath this week, or in fact, if you're having one because you're having heating problems, you let us know. You can either email us, or you can use the magic button on the podcast page and tell us all about it. I'll tell you now, if somebody sends us in a live 90 seconds of them getting in the ice bath, right? Press record on the laptop, have it there sitting on the toilet as you get in. I will use it. I'll bleep out the swearing. We'll have it on the show.
There it is. Why would you not want to do it?
Why would you not want to do it? Exactly. Now listen, this leads us on quite beautifully actually, because ice baths are good for preventing injuries.
Yeah.
And someone who we know who has suffered and struggled with injuries over the last 3 years since his fantastic team performance at the 2012 Olympics is none other than the wonderful Stuart Hayes. Now, you'll remember Stu, won't you, Helen? You'll remember him.
I remember him, yes. He was the domestique for Johnny and Ali Brownlee at London 2012 and did an absolutely sterling job on that bike. He worked his butt off.
He certainly did, and I've used a shot of that for the cover shot for the podcast this week of him towing the boys along at about 50 miles an hour through the centre of London. And ever since 2012, he's been really struggling with run injuries to the point where it looked like he thought he was going to have to retire. But the great news is, in this interview, he tells us he's found the magic physiotherapist for him who's given him the strengthening exercises and he can run again.
Oh, brilliant.
And it's a great interview actually. He covers a lot of stuff about his past, how he grew up and was a swimmer until he was 15, and then one day Spencer Smith comes along and trains in the lane next to him. Of course, Spencer Smith was a world champion at the time, and he thinks, yeah, I'll have a crack at this. So it's his whole story from being a 15-year-old who'd never done triathlon all the way through to sort of winning World Cups in Kitzbühel, obviously going to the Olympics, and even covering his hopeful looking at moving to 70.3 and possibly even Ironman distance over the coming year. So, yeah, cracking guy. It's a really good interview. A bit longer than the usual ones we do, so get yourself a cup of tea because it runs on for probably close to 45 minutes. But absolutely wonderful guy. And it's really good having him on the show. So without further ado, Hells, we will turn it over to the man himself here. Stu Hayes, welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. Thanks so much for finding the time to come on the show, man. It's a real honour to have you on, I've got to say. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I'm currently in Australia, Adelaide. Thank you for having me.
Oh, mate, I tell you what, it's absolutely, you are one of the guys who has been... I mentioned this in the chat we had briefly before we went on air. Since 2002, when I get into triathlon, you've been all over 220 magazine and, winning races here, there and everywhere around the world. And I think your racing career has been a little bit quieter over the last couple of years post-Olympics, but I'm sure we'll get to that later. And it's just great to have the chance to have you on, because obviously Emma Pallant was on a couple of weeks ago, who also trains with you and Team Dylan. So it was brilliant to have a chat with her, and then it's great to have the opportunity to have you on as well.
Yes, yeah, we're actually currently we're training in Adelaide, which is really nice. The weather's good because we're training for the Laguna Phuket Triathlon, which we're all doing next weekend in
Nice.
Thailand. So we're looking forward to that one. And yeah, we're just out here training hard. And I've had a little bit of a break. So I've had quite a bad injury, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I will race well in Thailand.
So I've got to tell you, I'm sitting here right now in Great Britain. The winter has really just started this week, mate. It's getting cold. It's absolutely tipping down. It feels like the sun hasn't risen today. So I'm more than a little bit jealous, and I'm sure the listeners will be as well. Listen, let's go back and let's talk about the start of your career. I've done a little bit of reading on your website about how it all started for you, but do you want to talk to us a little bit about your background and how you got into triathlon in the first place?
Yes, well, back in probably about when I was about 15 years old, I used to swim in the same swimming club as Spencer Smith, which is Hounslow Hurricanes, which is based in Isleworth. And at the time, he won the World Championships, and I was coming sort of to the end of my swimming career because I was kind of getting fed up with swimming all the time. And I saw that he was doing triathlon, and he became world champion, and I really looked up to him. So I thought, oh, I'll try triathlons, and it kind of went from there, really. And at the time, Tim Don was in the area too, and he started doing triathlons at the same time. I made friends with him, and he also occasionally swam at Hounslow Hurricanes too. So we became close friends. We joined Thames Turbos Triathlon Club, and everything went from there. We started to race internationally, juniors, then seniors, and yeah, that's how it all began, really.
So it must have been pretty amazing for you as a 15-year-old kid to have Spencer Smith and then later Tim Don as well in the same club as you. I mean, it didn't get any bigger than him as a name in triathlon at the time, did it?
No, it really didn't. He was the man at the time, and I mean, he still is to this day. I still see him occasionally at races. He was watching the World Championships in Chicago. He was at Windsor as well, and yeah, he was a real idol back in the 90s. He was a guy that used to always run around the speedos. I mean, things really have changed since then. Everyone wears tri-suits, but every so often, someone throws in the retro look, and yeah, it puts a smile on my face.
We're missing a little bit of that these days. Ever since Farris retired, he was the only one who was still rocking the speedos, wasn't he?
Yeah, it really was. But I'm sure. I mean, fashion always changes, so maybe it go back to everyone wearing speedos again. But we'll just wait and see.
Oh, Stu, I'm begging you, mate. Don't bring it back. Don't stick you in a fuck it. Oh dear. So growing up as a 15-year-old, obviously you were a swimmer up until that point. How much sort of swimming were you doing at the time, up to the age of about 15?
Well, from the age of 8 years old, because I was hyperactive, my parents had to do something to me to calm me down. So I was swimming maybe twice a day, from 8 to about 15. And then, obviously, when I got to 15, I threw in running as well. And my life got kind of really busy because you're trying to do that with schoolwork. And I actually remember times, I look back on it and I think, oh, maybe I was doing a little bit too much because I was falling asleep at classes. So, but then I got through that phase and I got to about 20, and that's when I sort of turned professional as such. Just went from there.
So at the age of 20, you just sort of headed out onto the World Cup scene, really. And I had a quick nosy through your results. Now, obviously, most of the listeners, I think, will know you from your role at London 2012. But over the years, as I said, from sort of 2002, 2003 onwards, you were constantly in the magazines, winning races across the country and internationally as well. So just a quick nosy through your results. I mean, you've won Blenheim, you've won Windsor, you've been over to America, and you've won. Did you win St. Anthony's or did you place there?
I've won Chicago. I've won the Oceanside, which was that was a non-drafting American race.
So are these ones the sort of what were termed the lifetime fitness series over there?
Yeah, it's all in America, mate. It's mostly non-drafting. It's a bit like 70.3 racing, but it's Olympic distance.
Yeah,
I've won a lot of those races because that seemed to really suit me. I have plans to step up to 70.3, but injuries have held me back, and I haven't really been able to race or train properly since 2012. So
Now, I was going to ask you about this. Do you feel that sort of your real strengths? Obviously, I know you're a lightning fast runner, but you're a super quick swimmer. You were always one of the fastest swimmers out there, and then a really strong biker. Obviously, when races sort of shifted in the mid 2000s towards it being draft legal, that I kind of felt took away from your strength as a really strong swim biker.
yeah.
Was that something that was difficult for you in that transition when all of a sudden it became like a pack ride?
Well, no, it wasn't. In 2004, I was actually ranked second or third in the world. Um, that was when it was drafted. It really suited me. I didn't really get any injury problems. I was like 25 years old. Everything was going perfectly. Then when I got to about 28 and I really started to improve my run, that's when I started to pick up the injury problems because I was probably pushing things a little bit too hard. Because these
I
days,
see.
a lot of the guys, they really, really push the run. They probably do as much running as professional runners, but because they got their biking and their swimming on top of that, they can train a lot more. Uh,
Mm.
and that's what really went wrong for me was the injuries. And if you get injuries, you can't really push that top end of running, and that can kind of
Yeah, sure.
sometimes. So yeah, since 2000 sort of 10 when I won Kitzbühel, which took me 12 years to win a World Cup race, a WTS race, things really went downhill for me because of the injuries. But I've learned so much in those last 5 years.
Yeah, now is it a case of, do you think it's because you were trying to find that like extra little percentage on your run that you've ended up maybe picking up niggles that have turned into injuries?
Possibly. I mean, what I know now, if I knew that when I was 28, I probably would have been maybe an Olympic champion. But it's about basically as you get older, your pelvis will start to twist if you don't address certain things in the gym. If you don't strengthen your glutes, you don't strengthen your calves, you don't strengthen your hamstrings, everything will just twist and you'll come imbalance. And when you go into your 30s and into your 40s, things will just get worse and worse unless you actually address those problems. You see a really good strength and conditioning coach. You work really hard your physio. So, and you address your running technique as well.
Yeah, that's something I remember hearing Greg Bennett talking about as he was kind of coming to the sort of end of his career as it was. But he pretty much went from winning everything and then almost stopped, and he had a year of Ironman racing. But he used to talk about how it was doing all the extra stuff. It wasn't the run training itself or the running. It was doing, he described it as like an hour of prehab and rehab before and after every single run to make sure he'd warmed up and done the stretches and done the strength and conditioning work. And it was like that was the real hard work part of his training to keep his body in the shape to actually do what most of us would consider to be the training, the swim, bike and run. Have you noticed a big difference then since you've started paying much more attention to sort of core work and seeing the physio more?
Yeah, well, the physio I'm working with, I feel better now than I did when I was like 20. I don't actually have to stretch as much anymore. I don't have to get as much massage because I completely changed my run technique. I'm in the gym probably 4 times a week and I'm in there for like 2 hours at a time. I mean,
That's
obviously,
interesting.
I'm going to have to cut this back when I start training properly, but basically, I was just running on bones and tendons. My muscles weren't working properly at all. And if you literally don't get that pattern right when you run, you're going to break down. Like I was literally slamming my heel into the floor, and I just wasn't using my glutes and my hamstrings properly. So my ankle joint, which is what caused me all my problems, was taking all the impact, and I fractured it 3 times.
Oh wow,
I
that's
even,
that's hard, isn't
yeah,
it?
I even went to some physios and some doctors. They just inject me cortisone, which kind of worked for 3 months, and then suddenly it'd be fractured
Yeah.
again. So this whole
It kind of
process.
addresses the problem. Well, it doesn't fix the problem, but it addresses the symptom, doesn't it?
No, it's just like putting a plaster on. I mean, I even saw some doctors, and they said you might need surgery, and it was just a load of rubbish. It's basically the muscle had all wasted away in certain areas, so the joint takes the impact, and eventually you end up with a fracture. And I can see why people end up with hip replacements or knee replacements because they don't work out what muscles are weak. And once you work out which muscles are weak, then you strengthen those up, and you sort of eliminate the problem.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Who's the physio that you worked with then that finally kind of made everything click?
This guy in Harley Street, I saw a British athletics doctor, and then a guy in Harley Street called James Victors, and he's a guy who's really helped me out. And I don't really see him that often. I see him like I've seen him about 4 times. I go there, he looks at me, he tells me what exercises I need to do. I go away, do work really hard in the gym, like, and 6 weeks later he looks at me again. Oh, you need to be stronger here, here, here. And then it's not like he treats me at all. He just gives me strength and conditioning work, and it works really well. If you could,
Yeah, it's brilliant, that, isn't it? When you get a good physio who, I think there's a misconception about physios that you go in, you get treatment, and the treatment fixes you. When very often it's the exercises that they can see that are fixing imbalances that are then going to make you stronger for the long term, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I've been getting treatment literally my whole life, and this is the point. I can actually, when I like even ride my bike, I can actually pull my leg up properly. As before, I used to just push down, where I've got an actual full rotation. Because most athletes will be quad dominant when they cycle, and it's about getting a hamstring and a quad with the same ratio, and that's really hard to do. I mean, I know that Chris Hoy has got equal amount of power on the hamstring and the quad, but that is really a lot of hard work in the gym to get that balance right.
Yeah. What are some of the activities they've had you doing then to help strengthen your hams and your glutes?
It's really difficult to explain. I mean, I do stuff like hamstring raises, hamstring curls. I do stuff on the leg press machine, on my calves.
Right.
I'd have to.
So there's a lot of sort of gym-based weights work then that's worked for you.
Oh yeah, a lot of. It's actually quite heavyweight as well, but it's all based on running exercises, like on the leg press machine, on a hamstring curl machine, strengthening my glutes. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much. When I go to the gym now, I've actually worked out I actually strengthen up my whole body every time I go in there.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear that the sort of
good.
the injury problems, the light at the end of the tunnel is always great when you talk to an athlete and you can hear that sort of hope and optimism in the voice that something's getting better. And, you know, I get this real sense from you that you feel next season is the one where it's all going to be back to sort of firing well again.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you spoke to me 3 months ago, I'd say I'm going to have to retire because I can't fix it. And I don't usually give up that easily because I've had a lot of problems in the past. I've had a few fractures, I've torn muscles, but because it's an ankle joint impingement. It's basically what I had, and
I see.
I was at the point where Michelle, I can't fix this. I'm not having another injection just to numb the pain. I'm going to actually just retire because if I keep doing this, I one day won't be able to walk. But now I don't. I wait. Like I couldn't even get up in the morning and walk up the stairs. I'd be in pain. But now I wake up and it's completely fine. It's just literally from doing rehab in the gym.
Do you know, I'm relating to so much of what you say because I was struggling with an Achilles injury myself for about the last 3 years and went to see a fantastic physio who gave me some exercises. And I was the same as you. I was getting up in the mornings and like literally hobbling to the bathroom. And when your first thought in the morning is, oh God, I'm in pain again, it really sets you off in a negative way at the start of the day, doesn't it?
Oh, it really does. And Achilles is very similar to my problem. Unless you have to get on top of it really quickly, because if you don't, you end up like you just explained, it becomes a real bad problem. But if you keep working at something, it will go away and you will fix it. And sometimes the first physio you see isn't going to be one that fixes you. You probably give them about 6 weeks. And if there actually isn't any improvement, you have to move on and find someone that will help you because there's so many great people out there that can help.
Yeah, and it's having the right person for the fix, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So listen, let's talk a bit more about your racing. You mentioned this already, but there's a great photograph. I'm going to use this as the cover for the podcast if it's all right with you. Yeah. It's Stuart Hayes standing in the centre of the podium. On his right is Javier Gomez, and on his left is Jan Frodeno. That must have felt pretty damn good.
Oh yes, it really did. I mean, that race. I mean, it's 2010 when I won that race. That was quite a long time ago, but I actually won it on the bike, and I won it because I was very tactical in the race. I basically got away on the bike. I got a 2-minute lead, and I could not cruise the run because Gomez is such a fast runner, but I had a bit of breathing space, and that's really not happened since that day. Anyone else has never done that before, ever done that since. So I was quite sort of pleased with myself from what I did, and I never did anything since then in the WTS, unfortunately. So well,
it's a pretty nice feather to have in your cap, isn't it? To be on the top of a podium in company like that. I was always also reading on your blog. You ran recently a 10K, and you ran sub 31 minutes, right? Was it 30 minutes 50 you ran?
That's my PB. Yeah, that was quite a while back. probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I did that time. No,
You need to do more blogging, Stu.
oh,
That's what it is.
probably do. No, I think it's in 2013. I might have done that time.
And that was in a flat out run race that had Mo Farah in
Oh
and
yes,
Scott Overall as well.
yeah, the London 10K. Yeah, that's right. That was I think that's 2013.
Fantastic stuff. So let's fast forward a little bit then. You've got some years of consistent results here of winning things like the London Triathlon and Blenheim and places like that. You put your hat into the ring, obviously, to go to London 2012. The selectors decided that they were going to take the two Brownlee brothers, and that the third slot, rather controversially at the time, was going to be not an extra slot for somebody chasing for a medal, but someone who could support the Brownlees. Now, you obviously threw your hat into the ring for that and were selected. Can you talk us about your feelings about the sort of the whole Olympic experience?
Oh, it was 2012 was a great experience, and we didn't anticipate the amount of people that were going to actually be watching the race. I mean, we had plans before the race that, it's going to be a big thing, and there's been quite a lot of media attention. But when we actually turned up on the day, I think there was over 1 million people watching the race, and we couldn't actually communicate when we were racing. That's how many people were actually cheering for us. But
Yeah, no, that's something I wanted to talk to you about, and it says this in your blog. You tried to talk to each other as you were riding around the course, and the crowds were so loud you literally couldn't hear each other. Is that right?
yeah, it's true. We couldn't even talk to each other or anything, and there was times when I felt that Johnny was he was doing too much work on the front. I was telling him to stop, but he couldn't even hear me, so it kind of didn't work. But yeah, it was something which was absolutely amazing, and I don't know if Rio would be the same. I have actually raced in Rio. I raced in Rio in 2004, and they do get behind triathlon because they're quite a triathlon nation, but I don't think it's going to be anything like London.
Mm. It must be. It's kind of it's a once in a lifetime chance, isn't it, to have a home Olympics, especially for you. I mean, as a Londoner, home Olympics in your hometown. Did you get the sense, or were you aware? Was there anybody there that you knew out on the course supporting? Was it just there were so many, like 1 million people? Did you recognise anybody, or?
Well, yeah, I saw like my cousin in the background, watching the race, which I didn't. She never told me she was going to be there. My parents were watching. My brother and sister was watching. So yeah, I had all my family down, and I think there was people there, friends which tell me now, oh, I was at the London 2012, or I've made friends with people saying, yeah, I was
Yeah.
at London 2012. I mean, Jason Bradbury was there watching. He reckons he climbed up a tree, and he told me because I've become friends with him. He said, yeah, I was there watching. I'm like, oh, were you? So I get to meet these people, especially living in London, because I used to live in Loughborough, and I've moved back to London. And I get to meet a lot of people now. Say, oh yeah, I watched you in London 2012. So yeah, it's really nice to hear that there was so much support out there.
I had to say as well, it looked as though, I mean, the race went off. You ended up coming out the water in sort of the second pack. There was a slight gap, wasn't there, to the
Yes.
Brownlees, and you kind of looked like you played a really smart game. You just kind of sat in and didn't do any work, and I guess the plan was, if this pack bridged up to the Brownlees, I'm then fresh to get on the front and try and make people hurt, and it pretty much went down exactly like that, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it did. I mean, our biggest fear was that someone would try and get away on the bike, like I would if I was racing the Brownlees, because there's no way you want to run against Alistair or Johnny. The fear was someone would try and get away on the bike, and if they got, say, a minute's lead, they could potentially take the gold medal away. So if anyone tried to get away, I'd close it down, and if I kept the pace high enough, it wasn't. I don't think I was really hurting anyone that much because they were just sitting in. But if I kept the pace going fast enough, no one would try and get away, and it actually worked. So we talked about it for 2 or 3 weeks before the race, and it pretty much went to plan.
Mm. Well, it did definitely look as though the pace was so hot on the bike that nobody even really made an attempt, did they, to get away? And whenever anybody did show an interest, you were on them like
Yes.
before anything happened at all, and nobody got away.
No, they didn't. I mean, I think Chris Gemmell tried once. He was a guy from New Zealand, and a Russian guy tried once as well. But I could sort of tell they were going to try something because I could see the way they were sort of like looking around at certain points. So I knew as long as I literally shut it down straight away, they couldn't get a gap and start working together. So yeah, it really worked in our favour.
Yeah. And how long did it take you, the bike leg, in that race? Do you know? Did you kind of get splits on how long it had taken and your power output and things like that? Because I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff.
Yeah, not really. We didn't use any power meters.
It was
Nothing.
just a case of racing and close the
Yeah,
gaps.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was literally ready to absolutely kill myself. I had to be. I did expect it to be a lot harder on the bike, but it was actually easier than I thought. I raced in Kitzbühel 2 weeks prior, or no, a month prior, and I found that a lot harder. The actual
Right.
London race. I mean, it might have been because we were so conditioned. I mean, we've been training at high altitude for the last 6 weeks, so that probably helped as well. But I did expect the bike leg to be much faster, but it wasn't.
I see. And I wonder whether the adrenaline and the fact there's such great crowds there play a part in the fact that maybe you just don't feel what's going on when you're so excited, right?
No, I think that's what it is as well. You can't feel your body because you've got so many people cheering you, and that's why the home Olympics is always a special one. Anything that's at the home, you always raise your game. Like I think that the Leeds race next season will be just like that, especially being the hometown of the Brownlee brothers.
Yeah, that's going to be incredible, isn't it? Were you aware of people shouting for you guys specifically as you went round? Was there a real feel of like the sort of home turf?
Oh, definitely. More so the run. I mean, people were cheering me, and I was coming sort of 30th, and they were cheering me like I'd won the race. So it definitely felt the whole entire nation was behind you on that particular day. And I didn't even notice any other flags out there. All I could see was British flags. So yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely helps to be British, especially at London 2012.
it was an amazing spectacle, that's for sure. When you got off the bike, did you kind of feel at that point that's it, job done,
Uh,
and I've just got to get myself to the finish line? Or how was that experience for you? Did you know what was going on? Could you see how the boys were getting on up in front?
I had an idea because you could hear it from the crowds and you could see on the big screens. And I knew the shape the boys were in. I knew Alistair was in absolutely fantastic shape, and he had trained so hard. I couldn't really see anyone outrun him, so I knew all he had to do was come off the bike with the leaders, and he was going to win. I actually thought that Johnny could have maybe got second, possibly, if he hadn't have done so much work on the bike.
Mm.
And he
And
had
he picked up that penalty as well, didn't he?
exactly. So I mean, fingers crossed in Rio, they could definitely get first and second.
Yeah, it's a definite potential. Now, talking about Rio, what are your feelings regarding? Do you have ambition to be the third guy there again? Because obviously you've got to be forefront of the selectors' minds, having done such a good job in 2012. What are your thoughts around that?
I mean, I haven't raced the ITU races for God about 3 years now. I did race last year. I did the Madrid World Cup and I came sixth. But I'm looking more to do 70.3 racing, and I
Right,
think
that's interesting.
yeah, I'd leave it up to some other guys if they want to have a domestique or they're going to have an individual. I'll just leave it up to them. I mean, I know the work that has to go in to prepare for the Olympic Games, and it's pretty intense. It's not like it's one race, and it's a really hard experience, and you have to really dedicate your whole year to that one day, and it is quite hard. And
Sure,
I've
it
got to
is.
that
Yeah.
age now where I don't really want to do that again. So leave it to someone else a bit younger.
Who would your tip be if you were selecting someone to domestique for the two Brownlees?
um, one of the Bishop brothers, David Bishop. Is
Interesting.
it David? I always get confused, David or Tom. Who's
Interesting.
the one, the blonde-haired one?
I get mixed up as well. Don't put me on the spot.
Bishop.
Helen would know. I'll ask Helen later.
Yeah, one of the Bishop brothers, definitely. I think it's Tom Bishop. Yeah, hope I'm right. He's going to kill me. Um, but
We'll edit this later.
he's the only guy that can actually swim and bike with the Brownlees. Yeah, he
Interesting.
trains in Leeds with them, and I think he's the guy that can do it. And he's light as well, so he'll be good up the climb.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I'm not too sure. And I mean, I don't. The selectors are going to have a tough time picking for the men's a domestique or an individual place.
Hmm. Do you think the race will play out differently this year because the course? I mean, London was obviously pretty flat, and Rio's not. Do you think there might be a chance of people kind of really going nuts on the hill and trying to break the race up?
Yeah, Alistair and Johnny will break the race up. That course is
You think
actually,
they'll do it themselves?
yeah, that is more made for them than London. I mean, in London it was completely flat, and there's a small chance someone could have got away, or
Yeah.
some guy could have been dragged up from the back and been a really fast runner, not done any work on the bike. But literally, that course is a triathlon. It's swim, bike, and run. And from what I heard, it is really tough to climb. And Alistair will just love it because he's from Leeds, and Johnny will just follow him. So they're just going to destroy the field, basically.
You think it's just going to be a domination?
Totally domination with Gomez trying to keep up with them.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I'll email you after the race and see whether you were correct on that one. First marks down, that's great. Now listen, let's talk about you going into the future then. You've mentioned a couple of times you're interested in going to 70.3 racing, and that really was going to be my next question before you mentioned it. Now that you've sort of got these running injuries under control, talk to us about what your plans are for the coming season.
Well, I just want to have a proper season because I get to like this year. I won Windsor and I couldn't walk afterwards because my ankle was fractured. I just want to have a full season of racing. I'm mainly doing 70.3s. I mean, I was just going to do Olympic distance non-drafting, but that's sort of disappeared now. So 70.3s is what I'm going to move up to, and I would like to go to the World Championships, wherever it's going to be next year. I think it's in Mooloolaba.
It is. It's in Australia, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'd like to do that one, and just go from there really, and maybe do Ironman, maybe 2 years after, maybe see how my body is.
Yeah, see how the legs feel after the half Ironman efforts.
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything as long as that in training? Have you got a feel for how you'll go?
Yeah, I do find it a bit harder. It's a completely different style of racing. I have done a couple of 70.3s. I did St Croix one year, and I crashed, and I managed to come sixth, which I was quite pleased with. I also done the World Championships twice, I think twice, maybe once, and I didn't do too well because I just it's a completely different style of race. Like I mean, ITU athletes, even if it's non-drafting, I'm so used to just going as hard as I possibly can. But you can't really do that as much in 70.3. You have to sort of hold back a little bit.
Yeah.
And you have to do a lot of cycling. Most of the damage is done on the bike. And if you haven't done a lot of cycling, you can't run a half Ironman at a good pace. So it is different type of training, definitely.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, obviously you've got the run pedigree as a sub 31 minute 10k runner. You've got the run pedigree to be with these guys when they're running now sub 111, sub 110 sometimes off the bike, if you get that bike pacing right. So do you have a strategy going forward to help you with that pacing? Do you ride with power and train with power and race with it, or is it something that'll, you think, sort of play more of a part going forwards?
Oh, I do a lot of training on the watt bike, so I use power when I train.
I see.
And I have used,
but not racing at the moment.
No, I haven't raced. I wouldn't race with power anyway, because when I'm in a race, I just sometimes, like, if the pace goes down really high, and you don't want to be analysing your power, because you sometimes have to go with it, and then maybe it'll get easier later on. But in training,
that makes a lot of sense. I think at the Olympic distance race, when you're racing the other guys on the bike, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. And even in the 70.3, because the packs form, even though it's non-drafting, but they do still form. And if you sit in a pack, you get a lot more of a suction than just coming on your own. So sometimes power will go up and down. Ironman's different. I've never done an Ironman, but if you miss the pack, and I know athletes that end up missing packs, and they have to ride 50 watts more for like an hour just to catch a pack up, and that's going to eat into your run.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't race for a power meter on, but maybe I would to maybe analyse the data at the end.
It's interesting to get the point of view from someone right at the elite end like you, because obviously for age groupers, the power meter's it's almost like cheating, because you can work out your numbers and sort of save your legs for the run. But I suppose when you're in the position you'll be, where you're coming out of the water first or second, and then the race on the bike even, I suppose, will be dictated by what's going on with that pace line and whether you decide to go with whoever's going at the front. And it's still a race, isn't it, rather than trying to pace yourself according to sort of energetic output almost.
Oh, totally. I mean, sometimes you come out of races, you've got lead cars, you've got lead motorbikes, and if someone decides to really go for it at the beginning and they take all that traffic with them, and you don't go with that and you're left on your own, you can literally be putting down a load more watts at the beginning of the race when all you had to do was go hard at the beginning for maybe the first 15 minutes, and then after that it settles down, and then that enable your watts to settle down, your heart rate to settle down, you're back in the race. But if you just
Yeah.
let people just go and go, oh, I want to stick at say 300 watts, then that could work against you later on in the race. So I still watch the 70.3 races, and they definitely still race the bike, especially at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, what kind of what races do you think you'll target next year then? 70.3 wise. Will you race in the UK, or will most of it be based abroad, do you think?
I haven't really looked into it yet. I mean, I'm doing Laguna Phuket 70.3 in 2 weeks' time. So I'll see how that goes, and then I'll decide from there. I mean, it's hard to say really, because I'd like to do some of these big money races in the challenge ones, or it's Ironman now. I don't know what happened there, something. But
Oh, the ones over in the Middle East.
yeah, they 1 minute it's challenge, next minute it's Ironman. So it all depends on.
Yeah, they keep getting dumped, don't they, and getting a new boyfriend and girlfriend. That's what's happening.
Yeah, so I'd like to do one of those race series somewhere in the world, just because it keeps you motivated when you hear about all these great races and all these great athletes racing. So I haven't really decided. Just see what happens next year and what comes out in the calendar.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how it is trying to make a living as a pro triathlete. You mentioned there the money and the big money races and stuff. How have you found it over the last few years in terms of sort of trying to make a living from being a professional athlete? Does your prize money contribute the majority of your living, or is it sponsorship and other ways of making money?
Well, it used to be prize money, but obviously I haven't raced properly for about 3 years. And most of my income comes from coaching, which I'm very lucky that me and my wife, we have a team doing coaching. So I'm able to do that, give back to the age group athletes, teach them everything. It is very hard to make a living out of triathlon. I do have I am sponsored. I'm sponsored by Speedo, and they look after me well. And also Maxi Fuel, they sponsor me too. But apart from that, I remember when I was younger, prize money is not something. It has its good years and its bad years, and it is very difficult to make a living out of triathlon. And it's a very hard way to make a living because you have to literally spend the whole day training, and you can't really. If you have a part-time job, that's just going to eat into your training and make you tired. So it is. I mean, it's great to make prize money in races, but the money isn't as good as it used to be. You have the odd race, but there used to be like a big series in America. Even in Britain, the races aren't as good as they used to be. The prize money's come down, so it is very difficult to make a living.
Yeah, and it's difficult as well, I suppose, that when you get into that circle where you're trying to chase that extra 1% and you get injured and then you can't race and then you can't make a living, so then you can't train, and it becomes a very difficult circle, I suppose.
Oh, it certainly does. And you hear of a lot of athletes that really retire because they can't afford to do it anymore. I mean, there's a lot of good parents out there that support athletes, but there comes a point where sometimes you have to think, I can't afford this anymore, so I have to get a job.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Team Dylan there, that obviously you and Michelle are the main coaches for, and Emma Pallant was really touching the other week when she was on. She was saying how much support she'd got from you and Michelle and how you'd almost treated her like family, and it sounds like a brilliant setup you've got. How many athletes do you have in Team Dylan these days?
We have about 50 athletes between me, Emma, and Michelle. Yeah, we have a great little team, and we really like coaching. And Emma loves coaching because without the coaching, she wouldn't be able to do what she does. She wouldn't be able to be a full-time athlete because, I mean, like British Triathlon aren't going to put on funding this year, which is a real shame, or for next year.
Really?
Yeah, that's a big shock, and she's really upset about that one. But that's yeah.
So even as World Duathlon champion, she won't qualify for any funding?
No, she won't. So luckily she's got Team Dylan, and she's got a few sponsors as well, and she's got a mum, which is really great. So she can continue to be a full-time athlete. And that girl is going to be something special later on in her life, really is. The only thing she's lacking a little bit is the swim, but she's getting faster and faster. Like today we did a set of 50 100s, and she went off like 120, 125, and then did a couple of 115s. So she's in really, really good shape, and she's really improving. And I just can't believe that British Triathlon can't see this. It's disappointing.
Well, she was only 30 seconds down in the last triathlon race she did, wasn't she? So
Yeah,
you combine that with world duathlon champion standard swimming and running. Is she not like a 15-20-5K runner?
yeah, she is. I mean,
That's just
and in Noosa,
astonishing.
she came out just 30 seconds behind Emma Moffat, and she's one of the best swimmers in triathlon. So she is improving,
Yeah.
but I don't understand it myself. I've never seen this before. I mean, I did have problems with funding, and I wasn't funded when I was at the Olympic Games, and I wasn't funded prior to the Olympic Games either. Even when I won Kitsville in
Really?
2010, I wasn't on funding. No.
Well, that's a real surprise to me that you played such a pivotal role in, certainly the way it went down on the day, it was a pivotal role in controlling the race, but also the way it was set up beforehand. It was the Three Musketeers, wasn't it? That you were there to do the job for British Triathlon and presumably, safeguarding the medals, safeguards lottery funding for the whole organisation for years to
Yeah.
come. And you weren't given any funding at all.
No, I got a budget when I got selected. I was had a budget to spend, but I wasn't on any funding at all. No, it was
Wow.
yeah,
I'll tell you what, it's really interesting to talk to you about this because I certainly assumed that you'd have been sort of looked after there, and I think everybody else would have assumed a similar thing as well. It's amazing to hear how difficult it is when we consider, like it's a professional sport in inverted commas, but the reality is you guys are all sort of working jobs in the background as coaches to
Yeah.
fund the fact you're going to the Olympics. It's not that different from the days of what's that film called? Chariots of Fire. When
yeah,
the guys were self-funded there or looked after by wealthy benefactors.
yeah. It is, but this is what makes you the ultimate athlete down the line. Like Emma, I mean, when you're a professional athlete, you're on funding. It's all great, but there will come a time when you will be kicked off funding, and if you haven't had that previous experience of not being on, like let's say you weren't on funding your whole career, you'd always know how to keep yourself going. You'd always like do some coaching, get some sponsors, sell yourself. But when you're always on funding and suddenly it stops, that can be quite hard as well. So I never experienced that, but there will be some athletes that will experience that. It's the inevitable. There'd be guys in Loughborough that are currently on funding, and after 2016, they're just going to drop them, and they're going to go, "Oh no, what do I do now?" And
Yeah, and it's made you self-reliant and resilient, and you've learnt all those skills to look after yourself, I suppose, haven't you?
yeah, exactly. I mean, Emma's self-reliant now. She's got her coaching, she's got a few sponsors, and she knows that she can do this for the rest of her life if she wants.
Yeah,
It would be nice,
and that's a
to have
great place to be.
Yeah, but unfortunately, she can't. She's not getting it, and that's just the way it is at the moment. But there will come a day where she will be something very special. So we wait for that.
Do you know, it's a testament to you that I've got you on and I'm interviewing you, and you're talking about her with as much affection and love as she talked about you guys. So it's obvious you've got a great setup going on there,
Yeah.
which is brilliant. Listen, just before I let you go, I want to ask you the Ironman question. You mentioned it very briefly. Tell me your feelings about, do you have a desire to move up and try yourself out at the Ironman distance?
I would love. I did say once that I'd never do an Ironman, but as I've got older, I've I really admire the guys that do Ironman, and I would like to try one definitely and see how it goes. I mean, I might be jumping the gun a little bit because I'm only up to like 50 minutes of running. But I do feel that one day I can obviously do the swim and the bike, but I've got to build up a lot more before I can actually say I'm going to do an Ironman. But yeah, one day I'd like to do one definitely.
Mate, I'm laughing along with you. I'm not laughing at you.
No.
I'm laughing because I was like 3 days into my running rehab a few months ago, and a mate said to me, "Hey, look, there's this 40-mile ultra around where you live. Do you fancy entering it with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sounds awesome." And it's like the leap that your brain makes between you're just getting back into training and we want to be back there straight away, don't we?
Yeah, and I think sometimes you think things, but then when you actually start doing it, you think, "Oh no, what have I got myself into?"
I guarantee now, Stu, that you'll have that thought if you're training for an Ironman that you've entered.
Yeah.
You'll go through more than once a day that what have I got myself into
Yeah, you're
thought.
absolutely right.
Have you ever been down and watched an Ironman? Have you been down at any of the big races or even been to Kona?
No, I haven't. No, I've never been. I have to. That's something I'll probably have to do first. Is watch it, see what it's all about. How about yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm really lucky that I live just down the road from the Ironman UK course, and
Right.
I was going to say if you get the chance to come and watch Ironman UK or Ironman Tenby,
Yeah.
just two of the most fantastic races in the world, I think. Especially Tenby, the support that was there this year was just mind blowing. So you'll have to get along for a little trip there
Yeah.
and do some supporting, man. It'll really fire you up.
Yeah, I think you're right. I will do. Well, Jason Bradbury was meant to race it, but he hurt his Achilles, and I told him not to race.
Oh,
So
good
hopefully
advice.
next year he'll do it, and I'll come down and watch.
Ah, it's a fantastic location. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth, Pembrokeshire as well. So good stuff, man. Well, listen, I've kept you on the phone for much longer than I said I was going to. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, mate.
Okay.
If people want to find out more about you, your website is stuarthayes.com.
Yep.
And one thing I also read on your blog, you've done some speaking, haven't you? Some sort of public speaking events. So if corporations are interested in having you along to do a motivational speech for their organisation, have a real, genuine, real life Olympian there with a story to tell, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, if they just contact Team Dylan Coaching. I mean, we all have stories. Michelle has a story. I have a story. Even Emma has a story now, because Michelle obviously broke her back and was a triathlete. So we all got stories to tell. So yeah, that's the best way to get in contact.
Fantastic stuff. Listen, mate, thanks ever so much. Really appreciate you taking the time, and hope we can get you back on the podcast next year once you've got some 70.3 wins under your belt.
Yeah, definitely.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, cheers, Rob.
So Stuart Hayes there, Hells.
Oh, he's such a good guy. I spoke to him, Rob, before London 2012, and I did a little interview with him and the Brownlees just a few days before their race, and I just remember him saying that the Brownlees he just said, they are machines.
Yeah. He's pretty much a machine himself, so for him to say that,
yeah.
It's pretty amazing. But it just comes across, doesn't it, what a really nice, genuine guy he is. And he talks, it's obvious when we had
Emma.
I was going to say Emma. I was going to say Laura then, because I was thinking about Laura familiar. When we had Emma Pallant on a couple of weeks ago, the affection that she talked of for Stu and Michelle Dillon was obvious and came across. And it's the same thing in that interview as well. I think they've got a really great setup there. And I just hope we get to see him racing for a few more years and really sort of having some great results at 70.3, because he could have another 4 or 5 years to his career if he can keep those injuries in check.
Well, that's it. I mean, Tim Don's gone and done it, and they would have raced so much together, didn't they? So
Yeah.
If he can do it for a few, couple of years, then absolutely.
Great stuff. So I think we're going to have to tie the old show up here tonight, Hells, really, aren't we? We've rambled on and on tonight with one thing and another.
I think so. But as ever, if you want to get in touch with us, feel free. We're on Twitter @CupOfTri. If you want to leave us a review, then please do, because that really helps us, doesn't it, Rob, on iTunes?
Oh, yeah, we've got to say thanks. We've had like 7 people in the last week left a review on iTunes. And we've moved up like the ranking things, which is really cool. We're getting up there up amongst the more established podcasts, which is really sweet to see. So if you're one of the guys or ladies who's left an interview for us, left a review for us, thanks very much. My version of iTunes is so old, Helen, I can only read the first 3 reviews and I can't read the next 4. I can't find a way to do it. So pretty hopeless, but thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And there's Rob, there's another way that people can help us as well, isn't there?
There is. If you fancy being a patron of the podcast, you can click on the link there and donate £2 a month to help keep the show running. All donations gratefully received. We very much appreciate people who are doing that for us.
Oliver Saxon got in touch saying he was going to do that, so @Oliver Saxon. So thank you so much. He said it's a weekly highlight. That's very kind of you.
A weekly highlight? Crikey. I tell you what. Oh, bless. That's very sweet. I really very much appreciate it. And the other people, of course, who help make this happen are our sponsors. So we should give a shout out. Although the season's over, raceforce.co.uk are starting to take their sign-ups now for next year's events. So if you pop over to their website, you can either book yourself a whole hotel type package where you can have 3 or 4 nights and your bike taken care of, or you can pack your bike up and it can be picked up and zoomed over in a fancy van and delivered to your hotel for you, Helen, for not much more than the price of taking it on the plane in a box with you.
Exactly, and it takes the hassle out, and they're such a good team. So raceforce.co.uk, and they are taking bookings for Mallorca 70.3.
They sure are. If you're interested in getting yourself some delicious cake made, you can buy Helen's Cake Book from fueledbycake.com. How many copies have we got left, Helen, at this point?
10.
10 to go.
The wonderful Susie Richards, I would like to give a shout out to Susie Richards. She's been an absolute star. So if you're in Leeds and Bradford Tri Club and you've bought one of the books, or if you swim with Susie or you bike with her in the cycle club up there, a massive, massive thank you.
Oh, she's lovely. Met her before I'm on UK. She's really, really nice person. It'd be great to get her on, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good. And a last shout, Hal, I'm going to put some pressure on myself here. OxygenAddict.com triathlon coaching. We're going to be launching a new coaching package in the next week. It's going to be a team coaching package. So Team Oxygen Addict will be coming your way next year. If you're interested in racing for the team, the package is going to include training plans aimed directly at events you're taking part in, race kit, various other bits and bobs as well. The details are going to be on the website soon, so check it out. We're going to be looking for, I think, Helen, 10 beta testers for the team coaching package. So if you're out there, it's going to be significantly cheaper than the personalized coaching that I offer at the moment. And so hopefully we'll be able to help people out with a top class training plan for the event that you're doing, some support as well for a much more significantly reduced price point.
Brilliant. Well, this is it. We are the Cup of Triathlon podcast. I'm Helen Murray.
I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
And we will be back with more next week.
And an interview with Rachel Joyce.
Yay!
Exciting times. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next week.